What's up, guys? Joe with Odyssey Off-Road. Welcome back to the channel. We got in front of you here, this is the my 25 yfz450r. As you guys know, I had Raptors for a long time. Ever since the channel started, pretty much. I was on Raptors. I had, let's give you a little history lesson. If you're new to the channel, I had a 2020 Raptor for several years, and then I sold that, started fresh, bought a I think it was a 24 Raptor 700 special edition. It's the orange and gray. They made those for 2 years. So and I had the big, they were just pretty much stock with big threes on them. They each had a different setup in terms of pipe and tune, but that's what I ran out here in the desert. All my road trips, I did trips to Indiana with it, trips to Oklahoma, the dunes out in California, all that stuff for 5 or 6 years. Raptor 700. And then I don't know, I had like an itch to try something different, and so I said, you know what, I sold my Raptor. I got good money for it. Somebody local bought it. He loves it, and I went and picked up this YFZ from Cochise Motorsports over in Sierra Vista. That's where I buy all my Yamaha stuff. So go talk to Pablo over there if you guys are interested. If you're anywhere near Arizona, you're going to get the best deal, guaranteed. I've had subscribers who have actually reached out to them from out of state and had a unit shipped. I think there was one person who bought a Raptor from them, and he was in like Vegas. They shipped it to him and still beat the prices of his local dealers in Nevada. So, I mean, that's pretty freaking good. So give them a holler. Tell them Joe with Odyssey Off-Road sent you. They will promise you, give you the best deal you get from anywhere else. So enough of that. The reason why I want to do this video is because I was on Raptors primarily for the length of this channel has been going. A lot of my subscribers are from following the Raptor stuff. And I think just sport quads in general, but obviously, if you have a Raptor, you're going to follow people that have Raptors, make Raptor content, and I get that. So when I got the YFZ, it was a little bit of a shock when I sold the Raptor and got this. And I get a lot of questions of which one I like better. Was it a mistake to buy this and sell the Raptor? So I kind of want to compare the two, since I have such a large amount of time on a 700, and now I have about 10 hours on this one, on this 450, and I've used it, obviously a couple rides out here in the desert. Got a ride video that I just dropped before this one, of a ride in this through the desert, and some desert riding, so you can see kind of the terrain, if you haven't seen that one yet. And then I've had it at the dunes once already this season. Probably be it for this year, because end of this dune season, it's already hot out there, so we'll be back there in October. But so I kind of gotten a variety of things to use it with, to put it through, I should say, at the variety of terrains. And so I think I can kind of comfortably say whether or not it's a mistake at this point. If I have any regrets on getting rid of the Raptor, and kind of compare the main differences between the two. I think a lot of people compare the two head to head, and a lot of people do a really good job comparing them. But I think there's some things that have been missed, that have been said in previous comparisons on other channels. So I just kind of wanted to highlight some things that I noticed. And you watch a bunch of the videos, and you kind of can put the pieces of the puzzle together, what you think is going to be best for you. I'm not here to tell you which one to buy. I'm kind of here to tell you, does it fit for what I'm doing? Do I regret getting rid of the Raptor, being only on a Raptor for so long, and then getting on this? What are the likes and dislikes of this versus the Raptor? Like, what is this better at than the Raptor, and what is the Raptor better at than this? Because there's a list for each one of which wins in certain categories. So let's start with comparisons. So similarities would be, they're both very comfortable in terms of sitting on the bike, feet on the pegs, rear end on the seat. If you're not a really tall guy, if you're a taller person, I think you'll find a little bit cramped on the YFZ. And the reason I say that is I'm not tall. I'm about 5'6.5". So I had to give you that half inch. It makes a big difference, 5'6.5" sounds better than 5'6", and it is accurate. I was just had my physical done recently. So the foot peg to seat is a little shorter, I feel like, on the YFZ, and I think Ian on Square One Speed Channel, he's a tall guy, really tall guy. He said he found it a little cramped, and so he did something. I think it was the Nerf bars he got, something that lowered the pegs for him, made it more comfortable. So if you're a really tall guy, you may find it a little cramped in that situation. I suggest sitting on both and seeing. If you don't want to do too much changes, sit on them both, see which one you'll be comfortable on. In terms of seat though, and like bar position and all that stuff, feels great. That was actually a concern I had with trail riding this machine. After being on a Raptor, Raptor's very comfortable to sit down on. The seat is super plush. Stock bar height, all that stuff for trail riding is good. So like, getting on this, everybody's like, it's aggressive. It's set up aggressively and you got to attack position all the time. And yeah, it's true. If you're standing, you're in more of an aggressive position on this machine because you're kind of more over the bars because the pegs are higher. But sitting down, dude, I think it's really comfortable. The seat is so plush, like it's just like sitting on a pillow. What makes it a more aggressive setup is the seat is so narrow in the front. So when you are up on the front of the seat and you got to hang off the sides and stuff like that, if you're going to sling it around turns and if you're racing it and stuff, it's a lot easier to get side to side on the seat and move around. So I can see that being, that's obviously is a benefit. Granted, that's why these are designed that way, because these machines are built to race. So, but if you just want to sit down and cruise the trail, this is stock positions. I haven't changed anything. I haven't moved my bars. I adjusted my levers a little bit how I like them. Changed my grips. That is it. Bar height is set at 0 on the bars. Nothing's been moved. So for me, 5'6", not a really tall guy. I got a slight bend in my elbows, sitting at a neutral position. And you can see where my knees are at the tank. On the Raptor, you'll have a little bit more. Like you'll probably be down your legs a little bit more. You'll have a little bit more of a slope, so it'll be a little less cramped on your hips, I would say. Like you could tighten up a little bit on your hips sitting on this machine because your knees are higher. So if you're really tall, you're going to be like this. You know what I mean? And that's where I can see that being a problem if you're a really tall guy. So something to consider there. Again, I would suggest sitting on both of them. Usually dealers will have both on the showroom floor. They're pretty readily available these days. But for me, comfortable, that's not been a negative, and that was definitely something I was worried about. So I'm happy with that. Power-wise, I think they're both very similar. They just deliver it a lot different. Like total, like power in general, like horsepower-wise, stock for stock, they don't feel much different to me in terms of, and I raced a stock Raptor, like drag raced. My buddy Scott, he's got a bone stock Raptor 700. And dude, we were like neck and neck. I think he had me we raced 2 times, I think. And one time we were like almost even. And then one time he had me like by half a quad length, maybe. So, they really are very similar in power. It's just how it puts the power down. So the Raptor, it's that 700. It's a long stroke engine. It lugs really well. So if you're riding tight stuff, and even in this open stuff, you could be out at or off-road park. I don't know where you ride, right? So but let's say you're somewhere and you're in fast and flowy stuff. You always could get into that position where you make a turn, there's a washed out section of trail, you kind of got to slow down real quick, you got to go over that slow. You can't hit it fast, no matter, you just can't. You got to go slow over it. And then there's like maybe a drop and up a hill and you make a turn, so you kind of got to like pick your way through a section. The Raptor's naturally better at that because you can basically be in like second gear and lug the bike through that stuff. And it's such a low RPM, and it's just like it's like a tractor. You could almost not even be on the gas. You could let off the clutch and that thing will just keep going. It'll roll until you jump on it and pull the clutch in and stop it. It'll just keep going. It'll climb over stuff. It's just got torque for days on the bottom. It's like a John Deere, you know. It's just tractors at low RPM. Where this, it needs some RPM, you know. It's not going to tractor at idle like a Raptor does. So you get in a situation like that where its trail slows down, and you gotta really weasel your way through something and pick your way through it at a slow pace. You can still do it on this, and the way you do it is you just drop it down to first. The R's will be up a little higher, but it's got a really nice first gear for that stuff. And as long as you keep the RPMs up a little bit, the bike's perfectly happy, and you can do things that way. You just got to ride it with the RPMs up a little higher. That's all. You just can't lug it like you can a Raptor. So you're just going to have to ride it differently. I wouldn't say it's worse or better. Like, I wouldn't say one can do it and the other one can't. They both can. You have to ride them differently, you know. If you're not the type of guy that likes to be up in the R's a lot, just buy the Raptor, because the Raptor doesn't like to be up in the R's a lot. And that's something that I see all too often. Like, even guys, like, if you ever watch drag, like guys that have drag bikes set up, and they run like ATV drag races, the Raptors lug, man, they quick shift them, and all the power's at the bottom. They're not screamers, okay? So some people buy Raptors, and they're, you know, you see these people online, what's the top speed? And, you know, they're blowing up cranks and stuff like that. And that is because those motors are not built for high, steady RPM, constantly getting pounded at 8 to 10,000 RPMs. They're just not. They're built to run lower to mid RPMs. That's where the power is on them. That's where the motors stay happy and healthy. You know, if you know, follow Cuervo Racing on YouTube, he's one of the like the Raptor guru pretty much, and he said on multiple videos, they're not meant for full wide open throttle, pinning it to win it, top speed runs, you know, and just holding the throttle hammered for long stretches. You're going to blow up your crank bearings on those. They just don't like that. That's not what they're built for. This machine is the contrary. It likes to be rev the snot out of it. You know, it's happier. The motor actually sounds better and healthier when you're revving the snot out of it. Where the Raptor sounds like it's going to grenade when you rev it out that high. You know, where it's really happy in the low mid RPMs. This machine is very happy in the mid RPMs, and then the higher the RPMs get, the motor actually smooths out and sounds like a crotch rocket. Like, you know, it sounds like a street bike, you know, like a street bike. That's how a motor sounds at like a higher RPM. It really smooths out. It's got an awesome tone to it. At the low RPMs, on the contrary, this motor sounds like, you know, a tin can rattle can. You know, it sounds like you got rocks in a coffee can and shaking them around. That's, you know, it's just the opposite. You know, they have to be ridden differently. So figure out how you like to ride. If you like to ride up high in the R's, buy a YFZ. Don't get a Raptor. It'll be happier. And again, to the contrary of that, if you like riding low RPMs, get the Raptor. If also, this machine is significantly wider. So that is both a huge positive and a huge negative, depending on where you ride. For me personally, I'm out here in the desert. Most stuff is pretty wide open. You know, we're at like 49 inches, whatever this thing is wide. It is so stable. You know, it never feels tippy. You never feel like you're going to roll it and get it on two wheels. It's just planted, stays flat. You just, you know, it just point and shoot and go. The Raptor, if you're riding it fast and aggressive, it's going to start to feel a little wallowy and top heavy. And when you especially going around turns, you really got to hang off the seat to keep that thing down from feeling tippy on you. Where this machine, you almost just got to slide your butt cheek over a little bit and you're good to go, dude. That thing's just going to rail turns. It's awesome. So if you're a little bit of a lazier rider and you don't like to be hanging off the seat, you know, when you're railing turns, this is a safer bet. But if you're riding in, you know, northeast, tight woods areas, tight trails, picking your way through trees a lot, and and a lot of that stuff maybe is a slower pace, the Raptor's probably better for you for that stuff, just because simple nature of it being narrower, and if you're going at a slower pace, that lugability of the Raptor with the lower RPM is going to be great for that stuff. That's why, like, if you look at a lot of the GNCC guys that ride the YFZs, not only obviously do they have, recluse clutches in them and suspension work and all that stuff, but they narrow the machines a little bit. They don't run them at stock width, so they're narrowed down for the GNCC guys. So just kind of to get your way through the trees real good, and you don't have to worry about clipping a tree. Center of gravity is still going to be lower, even with this bike narrowed. It's still going to jump better. It's still going to turn better than a Raptor, just because the geometry and the nature of it. The center of gravity on the bike, the weight's all low. It's just a totally different feel. So a positive of the Raptor, if you're trail riding a lot, it's going to be, though, it's got reverse. You don't got no reverse on this. It's kind of a bummer, but again, these things were built for MX tracks, and they're using all forms of racing now, obviously, but they're designed for the track, and you don't need reverse on the track. The Raptor, it's a trail machine. It's a sport quad built for the trails, so it's got reverse, got all that stuff. It's like the yfz450r I have at home in the garage. That's got reverse. I think that's the only 450 that was built that has reverse. Now, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any of the other 450s came with reverse. The Yamaha doesn't. I know the Suzuki didn't. I'm pretty sure the Can MDS did not either. I'm not sure about the KTM Polaris 450, but if that had reverse or not, but the Yamaha does not. So, again, if you're more of an exploratory type of rider, you're taking your sport quad out and kind of checking out some dead ends, and they're really tight and there's no place to really turn around. It's a bummer getting off, pulling on the grab bar or moving the quad around. Dude, they're not light. You picking them up and spinning them around. So reverse is nice, and I used the reverse all the time on the Raptor when I had it. You just kind of got to plan ahead when you have this and not reverse. Like, I know going in, like, okay, I'm going to want to turn around here. I don't want to park facing whatever, or I'm not going to pull into something and be like, oh, what's down there? And then just knowing I don't have reverse and I got to get up and move it, I'm just going to have to get off the bike, and walk down something, check it out, or, spin it around before I get to it to turn around. So you just kind of plan ahead. But if you're doing more of an exploratory trail ride, the Raptor's going to be better for that. This is really built for faster paced, open stuff. It's okay in the woods if you got to set up right, but again, you're going to have an occasional flame out. If you're going to lug the bike, you got to keep the R's up, and doesn't have reverse, So let's talk about suspension. So that's a biggie. We've already touched on like the width and the stability of it, and it's like center of gravity and handling. This hands down wins in that. But in terms of trail comfort, out of the box, stock shock settings, if you're just going to get on it and cruise around trails, like at a slower to mid-slow pace, the Raptor is going to be way more comfortable. Stock settings out of the box on this thing, you are bounced and beat up all over the place. Now, I have it softened up quite a bit, so it's fine for me, honestly. I'll tell you what those settings are here in a minute, what I did. But you're going to need to soften up the shocks, the settings, if you're a lighter guy. If you're a heavy guy, it might be all right. But even then, I feel like you can never find the bottom of these shocks. Whereas the Raptor, you could bottom out a Raptor, even with the clickers turned in a little bit. They're set up very plush, which is awesome for trail riding. But when you get really aggressive, or if you want to jump it and get some air, there's going to be a lot of unpredictability with that suspension because it's more bouncy, I would say. Where this, it's sporty. So you hit a jump, it takes it, it doesn't spring back up, bounce up real hard, and toss you around. hits the ground and just stays and keeps going, and it there's no like uh-oh feeling. The Raptor, you get 2 feet off the ground in a Raptor, me personally, it just always didn't like being in the air. And I got tossed off my Raptor pretty good in Oklahoma, you know, jumping up the top of a dune, and I wasn't even that much air. Maybe, I don't know, 3.5 feet off the ground, and maybe a distance of like 10 feet. And it landed, it completely compressed the whole suspension, and it just bucked me right off, threw me right off it. There's a video on that on the channel you guys could watch and laugh at me about. Where with this, it's just it eats that stuff up better. It's gonna if you want to jump and you want to hit big jumps, and you're that type of guy, you want to get some air, get a YFZ. Do not get a Raptor. You're gonna have to widen the suspension and get the shocks done in order for it to handle close to a stock YFZ for that type of riding. You know what I mean? Now, in terms of shock settings, what I did was to soften them up good for me. And again, I'm about 167 pounds, you know, in plain clothes. Like plain clothes for me is a pair of basketball shorts and a t-shirt. I'm about 167 pounds, just like that. So take what I'm telling you here into consideration with what I weigh. You know, if you're significantly heavier, it's gonna be different for you. But what I did was stock setting on the shocks. I'm 1 3/4 turn out from fully closed. That's about 3/4. That's 3/4 of a turn more softer than stock. Stock is 1 turn out in the front. I'm 1 3/4 turn out. Slow speed, which is the middle screw, 3 clicks softer than stock. Rebound, which is at the bottom of the shock, that's stock setting. It's 16 clicks out. The rear shock rebound, I actually slowed down a couple of clicks. I went in a couple of clicks because I felt like it was bucking a little bit in the back, so I slowed down the rebound, softened up the compression. So, and it's through here for the slow speed, and then the high speed, it takes the seat off. There's the nut for the shocks right behind the seat. But I'm 2 full turns out on the high speed, and a couple clicks softer on the low speed, also on the rear shock. So, and for trail riding, man, if going slow, like coming in through this stuff, you get all these rocks. I see all this big rock stuff. A lot of this coming through here. A lot of this stuff in general in trails in Arizona. So when you get into those sections on a sport quad, you don't want to be hammering it, you know, bend a wheel, or you know, you don't have a ton of ground clearance in the back with the back axle on a sport quad. So kind of want to go slow over some of that stuff, and you can just, with that setting, it's a lot more compliant. Out of the box stock, it was a little jarring. Obviously, it's got to break in a little bit too. The stock AYB shocks have to break in a little. Get a couple hours on them, and then you know, fine tune your settings. But they feel pretty good now. Still not as plush as a Raptor out of the box. Stock settings on a Raptor are still plusher than this, even with these softened up. So take that into consideration. If you want a soft, comfortable trail machine, get the Raptor. It's got reverse too. I just think the Raptor is better for trail riding. If you want something that's good for absolutely everything, it'll do everything for you pretty well, I think it's a Raptor 700. But it depends on where you live. So if you're out here in the desert like me, I don't really have any complaints. I'm not like, oh my God, what did I do? So if you guys are wondering that, the answer to that question is I don't regret getting this. And one of the reasons is, you know, there's a lot of, the trails are wider here, so I don't ever have that issue of it being too wide and going through narrow stuff. I've softened it up enough to where it feels pretty good for me. The seat is very comfortable. I like how I can ride it aggressive, and it just takes it a lot better, because you get some real rough sections of trail. If you watch the video I uploaded before this, or the trail ride video, there's a couple sections where it's just like a water bar after water bar after water bar, like rutted out the trail, and I just can hammer over that stuff, and the suspension just skips right over it all, you know? It's awesome. With the Raptor, man, you'd be tossed, or you'd be bottom out the suspension by the second hit, or you just have to go slow and kind of roll them. You know, they're not whoops, they're just like cuts in the ground where the water runs across and just washes it out. So a bunch of like one washout after another, and they'll be spaced like 2 feet apart. So you got to, you know, this, you can just hit it fast and it'll just skip the top like you're skipping whoops almost. And with the Raptor, not so much on that stuff. You kind of got to go over it slow. But the Raptor's narrower, so you can kind of work your way around some of it too. So again, pluses and minuses there, right? But I don't have any complaints with my riding style out here in the desert. It's also very good with just cruising. Like if you want to cruise the trail at 35, 40 miles an hour, you can click it up in fifth. And it's no, you know, no drama llama. It just does, it's not screaming and revved out. Fifth gear is pretty tall where you can click it up into that and then just cruise, and it's perfectly happy. Top gear on a Raptor is probably a little bit taller than this, so you can cruise more comfortably at a even higher speed in terms of gearing on the Raptor. But when you're cruising at a high speed on a Raptor, it'll start getting a little more squirrely because it's narrower, where this is just so planted and wide. That's the other thing I forgot to mention is on my Raptor, both my Raptors, I had a precision racing steering stabilizer, which isn't cheap. It's like $550. And I felt like it was needed almost on the Raptor. Where I'll be honest with you, I've hit some rough stuff pretty hard with this, and I've never felt like this could use a stabilizer. Now, I'm sure it would benefit from one. Every quad would. Every dirt bike would. But I'm not like, oh my God, this thing needs a steering stabilizer. It almost feels like it has one. To me, stock. Obviously, I'm not a racer, but I don't feel the need to go spend $550 right now on one, because I think it feels really good. I feel very comfortable with it as is. Where the Raptor, when I had it on my blue one, and I got my new one, I took it for one ride without it, and I was like, oh boy, you can really feel the difference. Like the steering is just like a lot more like that. And then you put it on there and it feels great again. So it could use it more than this could because of the width, I think, the stability. It kind of keeps you pointed straight. You don't get as many oh shit moments with the front end on this as you do on a Raptor, and it's not as top heavy either. So there's just a lot of things that come into play between geometry, power delivery, and all that stuff. So another thing for me too is I wanted to try this, whereas when I get together in these group rides with some of the boys, some of the other YouTube guys, you know, I'm getting older. I'm not as good a rider as probably at least half of those guys. You know, like Pete, Ian, Jake, those guys, John Sousa, those guys can hoof, dude. They move at a pace that like I just can't keep up. And the Raptor's not doing me any favors, because you get into rough sections or like, you know, fast turns and on stock suspension on the Raptor, dude, you know, you really gotta, it really feels tippy. Doesn't take it as good. And then you get into the whoop sections and it's just, you really gotta slow down on the Raptor. So I'm anxious to get on a group ride with those guys now. Obviously, I'm not gonna still be able to keep up with them if they're riding at their max level. You know, Joe's not keeping up with those guys. But it'll be a lot easier for me on this machine than the Raptor for sure. And that's only, you know, a couple times a year, but I just want to see. That'll be a really good marker for me. Like, how much was the Raptor holding me back, and when I get together again with those guys, how much closer I can stay to them or keep a pace with them. Because some of those boys, man, they can, like I said, they really can move, dude. Like, they're really good riders, and they they can go at a good fast pace for a good long while, and it's just hard. You know, a lot of us have a hard time keeping up with some of them. So, but this is great for that, man. And yeah, so for me, dude, like, no, I don't have any regrets, not at this point. You know, could it get old at one day, and I'd be like, just want to get back on a big cushy Raptor? Maybe, I don't know. But like, if I'm going to do that type of riding where it's going to be exploratory and, like, you know, poking around, slow stuff, I'm going to get a 4x4 quad for that stuff. So this will just be, and this thing's a monster at the dunes, man. Raptor's awesome at the dunes for pulling hills and drag racing. But for every other aspect, I enjoyed this more, actually, which I didn't think was going to be the case. But because of the wide stance and stuff, like you can go up and carve a dune, like, you know, go up, bank real hard left or right, and just whoop, flip it around and come straight back down, like throw roost sand and stuff. This is better for that. Just the power characteristics, how fast the motor spins up, and the stability, it just makes it so fun and playful. The only place the Raptor has it, and this was no slouch by any means, but like coming up to something slow and then having to get up on without a run, the Raptor's got so much torque, you can just chug up a hill. Where this, you want to spin the motor up. But dude, this thing is awesome. We climbed the biggest sand hills there that we usually do when we go, and I had zero problems. That was a big test for this for me, because we shoot these big sand walls, as you guys watch some of my dune videos, you'll have seen. And the YFZ has zero problems, and it's bone stock, so it's only going to be better, you know, when I free up the exhaust and put a tune on it. So yeah, we'll see what happens moving forward. But as of right now, I don't have any regrets. I really like it. It's great for me out here in the desert. If I was in more tight wood stuff, I can see rather having the Raptor. I definitely can see that being the case for a lot of people, and I wouldn't fault anybody for choosing either machine. They're both great. You really got to pick your flavor, how you like to ride, and where you ride, who you ride with. It's going to make a big difference. So a lot of the guys in our group, when we do all get together, the YouTube guys, a lot of the guys that have the Raptors, they have built suspension. They have, you know, Hauser wide A-arms, wider rear axle. You know, they have it widened out to like almost the width of a YFZ, and then they have their shocks done by Rocket Run, or they have Elkas or something like that. So you're following that on a stock Raptor. It's a long day. You know, you're at the back of the pack, because the suspension on that machine is just finding its limits in a ride like that. So, you know, if you want to ride like that, and you insist on having a Raptor, just plan on putting some money into the suspension. And the opposite with this, if you really want a 450 and not a Raptor, and you plan on just going slow trail riding, then just soften up the shock settings. And if they're still too stiff, send them out, get them revalved softer for yourself, and you'll be good. So that's it, guys. Don't want to keep rambling, but this is the yfz450. That's how I like it compared to the Raptor. And hope this was helpful for some of you. Check out the links in the video description. Merch store, buy some merch. Use the affiliate links, help support the channel a ton. Leave a comment, even just to say hi, tell me I'm an idiot, you don't like the channel, you like the channel, whatever it is you want to say in the comments. Feel free to leave the comment there. Helps me regardless. And subscribe if you haven't. This is Joe at Odyssey Off-Road. I really appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on the next video.